Howdy, howdy everybody, Chris here. We're back in the garage today. Today we're working on this Chrysler Crossfire.
Today I'm going to share with you how to repair minor dents in your vehicle and get them ready for paint. We're also going to talk about how to repair plastic bumper covers. We've got a nasty dent in this bumper cover that we will be repairing. I'll also share with you a couple of the most common mistakes beginners make when they're working with body filler. Darius is going to tear this bumper down, so let's get started.
So now that he's got this off, we need to heat this up from the back side. And what we're going to do is soften up this plastic and get it back into shape.
So one of the best ways I found to take care of these bumpers and get them back into shape is with heat. Now I like to heat the bumper up from the back side if possible. Heating it up from the back side is going to allow me to evaluate the front side as we heat it up, as we push it back into shape, and then cool it with a wet rag. When you heat it up and then cool it with a wet rag, that'll help it to maintain its shape. Darius has now got this bumper back into the basic shape it was at before. Now what Darius is going to do is he's going to sand this and prepare this for some flexible filler. How we do that is we sand it with 80 grit sandpaper on this orbital sander. We're going to remove the paint, some of the plastic, kind of level it out with that 80 grit sandpaper. Then we're going to apply some flexible glaze over it to fill in those low areas.
Okay, so this is the stuff that Darius used for this. It's a flexible glaze. It really doesn't have to be that much. It doesn't have to be that thick. So this stuff works perfectly. And it's really inexpensive. I'll leave a link in the description.
The dents on this quarter panel were relatively minor. We did do some glue pulling on it. So we used some glue tabs and we pulled out the dent as much as possible. In cases where you have a really minor ding, you could just fill that dent. Now, anytime a dent is created, it's going to create a crown around it. So you do want to tap down that crown around the ding before you fill it. We also went ahead and prepped this out with some 180 grit sandpaper. We are using USC Icing. This is a glazing putty to fill these dings. That calls for a 180 grit scratch before you apply the filler. It mixes up a lot like body filler. You use 2% hardener to filler. When you mix it up, you want to fold it in. You don't want to stir it or introduce any air into the filler. That can cause pinholes. And then you want to press it into the dent.
Alright, we got this filler on here. We're going to use some guide coat to help us figure the lower spots and the high spots. We're going to knock it down with 180 just to get the roughness out, and then we're going to switch to 320 to smooth it out. Since we're working in small areas, you don't want to get these 180 scratches far out than where your work is at. Alright, now that's good where it's at right now. We're going to switch over to 320. Got some 320, now we're going to block it out. So we need to refill this one. The low spot is still there. Blocked out too much of the filler. All these other ones feel pretty good, but this one right here, I can still feel that low, so we'll have to fill it out just a little bit more. We're gonna scuff this with 180 so it adheres properly, the icing.
Okay, so for you guys watching, we filled this, but we've got a high spot here and a high spot here. So we got a little bit of a crown from this dent. This dent's a little bit wider than we anticipated. Although we filled the very low area, it's a little bit wider. So we're going to try and tap down these crowns around it to kind of level that out. So when we put a skim coat over there, it'll block out a little bit straighter. So right here, there's a ridge. So I'm just going to take my flat spoon, and I want to create dents. Lay it on that crown. You can use a blending hammer for this too, which I have a blending hammer we could use. This is a blending hammer, so we use this edge here. It's got a rubber face on it. So it works really well for blending out these high spots. So right here's a high spot. So instead of this being a dip, like a high spot, then a dip, then a high spot, it's just going to be a little low right here. And this side and this side are going to be level. Okay, now you feel over that. Tell me if you can feel the difference, Darius.
Yeah, it feels a lot better.
It just feels like a flat spot in the center now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Now we don't have to build up so much filler in the center because we've tapped down these high spots. If we left the high spots there, we'd have to build up the filler in the center to meet these high spots. And you're not going to be able to get it straight because the metal around these high spots is low. So you really got to tap down those high spots. Now what I would do is sand around this and then put a skid coat over all three of these at once.
Darius is now going to hand sand around this repair area with a little bit of 180 grit sandpaper to promote adhesion of that new filler. Before he puts the filler on, he wants to clean it with some isopropyl alcohol, wipe it down, make sure it's nice and clean before we apply our filler. This is the USC Icing. He's just mixing this up until it's all one uniform color, and he's just going to lay a thin coat over this repair area. Now Darius will just use a little guide coat so he can see his high and low areas and evaluate his progress as he sands it. Again, Darius will use 180 grit sandpaper on this flexible block. He'll block it in an X pattern or a crosshatch pattern so he gets it nice and straight. But the reason we're using 180 is just to rough it in, and then he'll switch over to 320 to refine those 180 grit scratches before we primer. Now he's switching over to 320 grit sandpaper. So Darius is sanding the center section first. He'll worry about his edges later on. Once he gets this panel straight, he can clean up those edges with a smaller block or even a DA. A couple common problems that beginners have when they're doing body filler. For one thing, they'll pull the dent out too far. If you pull the dent out too far, you can't allow your body filler to fill those low areas. You're going to have too many high areas. You're going to be breaking through into bare metal, and it's going to be very difficult to get it straight. So avoid pulling your metal out too far. You always want to leave your metal in just an eighth of an inch so you can allow that body filler to fill those low areas so you can block sand it straight. The other problem is they block out too much filler. And that's exactly what happened to Darius here, but that's a good thing because this is a learning experience. He's able to understand what he did, why he did it, the causes of the problems he's having, and now he can make those corrections. And if you have to continue to apply filler and block sand it out, you'll figure it out pretty quick, and it'll help you to become better at using filler. That's what Darius did here. He repeated the process. He added more filler. He block sanded it with 180 grit sandpaper, then 320, cleaned up the edges, and he got it ready for primer. Darius did a really fantastic job on this repair. I just let him go at it. He did a fantastic job repairing this bumper cover and this quarter panel. He also was able to primer this, block sand it out, and mask it off for paint. And next, we're going to walk you through the step-by-step process of painting these panels. Remember, if you're looking for a detailed digital guide helping you with how to use body filler, the different types of primer, and how to apply clear coat, check out GarageNoiseGear.com. The link is in the description. And if you want to learn how to prepare primer perfectly, check out this video now. I appreciate each and every one of you watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of Garage Noise.